Thank you. Welcome to the Refugee Welcome Collective Lunch and Learn series. In these sessions, we aim to bring you interesting and timely information, whether you're a volunteer, community sponsor, resettlement agency staff, a local advocate, or just someone who's interested in learning more. We hope that you enjoy today's session on weatherization during Welcome. Refugee Welcome Collective collaborates with partners to provide in-depth training programs, weekly learning sessions, resources, and on-demand technical assistance for sponsors, resettlement agency staff, refugees paired with sponsors, community and institutional partners, and others to support quality community sponsorship programs across the United States. Next slide. Just quick housekeeping notes as a reminder to everyone joining us today. Everyone on today's webinar is automatically muted. However, if you experience any technical issues, please submit a question in the chat or in the questions box at the bottom of your screen. There's going to be time at the end of the webinar for a Q&A, and you'll be welcome to submit questions live, or you can submit them via the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen as we go in case you don't want to forget your question. Additionally, this presentation and any resources and the recording are going to be shared out to everyone following today's webinar. And this brings us to our presenter for today, Lynette Perlman, Senior Program Officer for Housing at Refugee Housing Solutions. Lynette, take it away.
Thank you, Jessica, for that introduction, and welcome everyone. Today we're going to talk about weatherization, and the reason why is because we're coming up on the winter months. So I want to make sure that you guys have the information you need to help your clients weatherize their home or their apartment. So let's just jump into this. Next slide. Now, before we go into the presentation, I just want to talk a little bit about who we are with Refugee Housing Solutions. Next slide. I'm sorry. This is your agenda. I'm going to go over an overview of Refugee Housing Solutions, and then we're going to talk about some energy saving practices. And then also we're going to talk about utility assistance. What utility assistance are out there to help assist your clients when they fall in a little bit of trouble, when they need assistance paying utilities, or how to get advanced assistance. Then we're going to talk about disconnection laws, which is very important, and then we're going to open it up to Q&A. So the next slide. Before I get started, I do want to highlight RHS, who we are. We are dedicated to providing technical assistance and capacity building support to a wide range of stakeholders, such as yourself. And this includes resettlement practitioners, housing providers, and community groups. We specifically focus on refugees and other newcomers to the United States. Our RHS team, we do collaborate closely with government and private sector entities to develop and implementing groundbreaking initiatives to expand affordable housing for newcomers and refugees. Next slide. So what we do, we are dedicated. We are a dedicated group to providing diverse array of training opportunities, and this is just an example, and comprehensive educational resources, including in-depth guidance documents, specialized toolkits, and informative fact sheets. Furthermore, we do extend our on-demand technical assistance to personalized support, not just to resettlement practitioners, but to newcomers, landlords, housing providers, and sponsors and volunteers as well. Next slide. And here is just a snapshot of a few of our resources on our website. I highly encourage you to go to our website. Next slide. Now, to schedule an appointment with one of our team members, you can go to our website under our technical assistant tab and enter your contact information and details of your TA request to our booking schedule system. That's how simple it is. So next slide. So we're going to go ahead and get started. And this is going to be very interactive. I want to know, what do you think weatherization is? Because there's a lot of misconceptions about that. So please grab your phone, or you can put it in the chat, and let's get some results. I want to know, what do you think weatherization is? Next slide. Are we getting a response, Grace? Is anybody responding?
Looks
Making a
like
house
we've
more
got
secure against weather, being more efficient. That's a great answer. Good answer. Anybody else? Well, due to time constraints, we're going to move on. Next slide.
Mm.
Okay, there we go. Weatherproofing, housing fixing to save money. There's our results. Those are correct answers. So let's go to the next slide. The next one. Back a little bit, Grace. Okay. So weatherization is called weatherproofing or winterizing. It does save energy in an apartment or home by making repairs or improvements, mostly to windows and doors. But many people believe that weatherproofing is exclusively for homes, but in reality, apartments can also benefit from weatherization. In fact, there are programs that are available to help with the process, which we will discuss in this webinar. So the next slide. So the next one is, why do you think it is important for newcomers to learn about weatherization? New climate, great answer. Total new climate, absolutely. Anybody else wants to chime in? Safety, it saves money. New climate, these are all correct answers. Anybody else want to chime in? I personally think that weatherization should be part of the culture orientation due to the fact that people are coming from different climates. And also you want to show a newcomer how to save money and also safety. So next slide. And here is why it is important. It's important for them to know about weatherization because it not only helps them with conserve energy and save money, but can also positively impact the household's health. Now, according to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, respiratory diseases are a significant reason for refugees and other immigrants seeking health care in their countries of arrival. So, with proper weatherproofing, you can improve the indoor air quality and effectively eliminate air allergens like pests, mold, and dust mites. It can also help with temperature control, especially during extreme weather conditions. So, for instance, when homes are too cold in winter or too hot in summer, it can trigger pre-existing medical conditions or cause someone in the household to develop an illness. Now, a weatherized home does reduce fatigue, anxiety, and stress, thereby improving sleep. Now, as a result, there are fewer instances of poor health translations to a decrease in missed work and school days. So it goes beyond just saving money. It can be a health thing as well. Next slide. Now, because we are coming up on some of the winter months, we're going to focus on weatherization, but the slide deck does include some tips for summer as well. So let's talk about the next slide. Let's talk about what a landlord is responsible for. So when renting, it can be challenging to determine the division of responsibilities between the landlord and the tenant regarding the weatherization. Now, this does becomes more important, especially during seasonal changes. So, therefore, it is essential for you and your client to carefully review the lease to understand what they and the landlord are responsible for. Now, for instance, certain leases may contain a clause specifying which party is responsible for maintenance and repairs. Another thing you need to do when you're working with your newcomer client is review the property maintenance laws for your state. Now, rental property maintenance laws, they do vary by location, but generally it requires landlords to ensure their properties are habitable and safe for tenants. Now, when you're looking at, like, for example, major exterior and interior crack repairs in a rental unit, that would fall under the property maintenance law, and that would be the landlord's responsibility. Now, there are weatherization grants. People didn't even know that. There's weatherization assistance program provided by the U.S. Department of Energy, and it is designed to offer valuable assistance to renters by enabling them to enhance the energy efficiencies of their homes. Now, with these type of programs, you would have to have the approval of the landlord. And we're going to have some links on how you can find out what weatherization grants are available in your area. Now, seal with leaky windows, even though a resident can do basic sealing, it is ultimately the responsibility of the landlord to have windows winterized or replace. So that is why it's so important when you're doing a housing inspection before a move-in. These are the things that you need to be checking for. So to get those corrected before the client moves into the home. But once they do move in the home, the maintaining of these things, especially when the weather is changing. Next slide. Insulation. Even though the landlord is responsible to ensure the installation of ducts, water heaters, and water pipes, tenants can take proactive measures to protect pipes from freezing during cold weather. One effective method is to leave the sink on a low drip. This continuous flow of water helps prevent the pipes from freezing and reduces the risk of them bursting. And again, it depends on where your newcomer lives. Clean chimneys. If you have a client that's living in a home or there's an actual fireplace, if the unit or home has that, it should be inspected regularly by a certified professional to ensure safety and proper functionality. One thing I do recommend when I did do walkthroughs with my clients and I saw that there was a fireplace, I would ask the landlord right then and there, when was the last time was it a proper inspection was done on the fireplace? And I would ask, well, by chance, do you have the documentation? Because I want to make sure that fireplace it has been inspected regularly and has been cleaned, because that could be a possible fire hazard. Making sure furnace filters are replaced regularly. Now, this is something that, especially during the winter months, when the weather is at its coldest, is essential to replace furnace filters more frequently to ensure proper heating and air quality. This is also important for residents to communicate with their landlords to determine whether they are responsible for this task. Now, I have seen some landlords require in their lease that the client is responsible for the maintenance of changing of filters. So that's why it's so important that you read that lease to see what they're responsible for when it comes to the maintenance. Now, if a tenant is responsible for replacing the filters, the lease should outline how often they should change it, but also the landlord should show them how to do that. So just FYI. Installing a programmable thermostat. If you, as a resettlement staff, have established a positive rapport with the landlord, it would be beneficial to suggest the installation of a programmable thermostat. There are programs out there that will help with this because there is a cost that comes to this, but there are grants that help with this type of thing. Again, clean and inspect the roof and gutters. If you are housing a client in a home, this is very important that before the offset of winter, the landlord must inspect and clean the roof and gutters thoroughly. Because gutters can accumulate leaves or debris, and this could be a hazard as well. And typically, the landlord should be practicing preventive maintenance regardless. Landlords can take proactive measures to ensure weatherization by consistently practicing preventive maintenance throughout the year. When I used to rent again, each housing provider and landlord is slightly different. They would give tenants preventive measure schedules to let us know when they were going to be doing some preventive maintenance on our units. So that's something you can inquire about with the landlord. If there are some preventive maintenance scheduling, what would that schedule look like? So your newcomer will know that the landlord is just not popping up on them, but they're coming to the unit just to do those things. Next slide. So we're coming up on our next Slido. What are some weatherization tips that you can share with a new tenant, your newcomer tenant? Grace, are we getting any response? Seal windows, that's a great one. Anybody else? Yes, one on the door. That's the old school one. That's a good one too. Anybody else? These are good answers. Fans versus AC, good one too. Learning about AC adjustment before leaving house. You guys could teach this course for me. Absolutely. These are all great answers. Next slide. So we're going to talk about some energy saving practices, and you guys kind of almost got it down packed. Be sure storm windows and doors are closed. Ensure that they are secured close to provide additional insulation and reduce energy costs. Block windowsills, block drafts coming through windowsills and below doors, like someone just mentioned, using options such as plastic, weather stripping, thermal curtains, blinds, even. So I want to talk about the plastic. You would have to be careful with that, especially if you're housing a newcomer with children. I would not recommend plastic because that could be a safety issue. Someone says block door drafts, which is correct. Door drafts can be blocked with foam tape or door sweeps or a door draft stopper. And let's just use nature. Let sunshine in. Take advantage of natural heating by letting the sunshine in during the day, and keeping the blinds or curtains open allows the sun to warm the home. Closing them at night helps to trap the heat. Another thing that people really don't realize is rugs. It does enhance the warmth of the home by placing rugs on the floors, and rugs not only insulate the floor, but it does reduce heat loss, but also makes the space cozier. Large area rugs offer better insulation and heat loss reduction than smaller ones, and it helps keeps the person's feet warm and dry. And that doesn't cost much, especially to buy rugs. Next slide. Decorative pictures. It does enhance the home's insulation by hanging carpets or other fabrics as wall decorations. Now, while walls may not conduct heat as readily as windows, they can still release significant warmth. So, walls can be adorned with fabric decorations, pictures, mirrors, tapestries, or bookshelves, effectively insulating the living space. Humidifiers are good too. They are essential for maintaining indoor comfort as they make you feel warmer with less need for heating. Dry air can also make temperatures feel cooler, but a humidifier can help you retain more heat produced by the furnace. One thing we used to do when I was younger, and I do it now as an adult, my mom used to designate a warm room or a cold room. This encourage your client to select a specific room in their home and transform it into a warm space while maintaining cooler temperatures in other areas. Can be a thoughtful strategy, can be particularly beneficial during winter emergencies, as it offers a well-insulated sanctuary for helping stay warm and comfortable. And that could be same during the summer as well. Have a designated cool room as well. Extra layers of clothing. Encourage your clients to wear additional layers of clothing and utilize extra blankets on beds to stay warm at night. Layered clothing and selecting appropriate blankets are essential for trapping and controlling body warmth. And check vents for blocks. This is blockages. This is very important. Have them check for any obstructions that might be blocking vents, such as furniture or personal items. Proper airflow is crucial for the efficient operation of heating and cooling systems. Block vents can increase pressure on the HVAC system, causing it to work harder and potentially shortening its lifespan. And additionally, block vents restrict heat flow and maybe pose a fire hazard, so making it essential to ensure unobstructed airflow. Next slide. Some other tips you can tell your client is to unplug appliances. And some of the stuff you can do yourself as well. By having your client unplug appliances they do not use, they can save between $100 to $200 per year on their energy bill. Now, this is because standby power, also known as it's called vampire power, can account for up to 10% of a home's energy usage. Another thing, preheat oven. Advise your client to preheat the oven as required for specific recipes. Additionally, suggest that cooking multiple items spontaneously is most effective way to utilize the oven's capacity while saving energy. Another energy cooking tip is if the electric oven, using it during off-peak hours, which are 8 a.m. to 10 a.m., from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. if possible. And one thing is limiting hot water use in showering instead of bathing. I know some people thought bathing saves water better than showering, but as studies has said showering saves more, especially if the shower head is a low flowing and the water is turned off while soaping up and the duration of the shower is controlled. So these are some basic things that you can do. Next slide. Now I want to talk about winter safety tips. I do know there can be some cultural differences, but there are some tips. Advise your client do not use the oven as a space heater. Whether your new client has electric, regardless if it's electric or gas oven, you should inform them that under no circumstances should the oven be used as a space heater. You should also discuss the dangers of each. Now, for example, gas ovens can have the potential to develop a gas leak. And although electric ovens may be safer, there can be electrical hazards if not used correctly. Another big safety thing you should discuss is space heaters. When instructing your client on using a space heater, it's crucial to emphasize the proper usage to prevent hazards such as overheating. You need to advise them not to leave the heater unattended or unsupervised to ensure it is not placed too close also to combustible items or materials that may catch on fire. That's a big one. Um, Also, give them a schedule on when they should be checking their smoke detector or CO2 on a regular basis if they do have one. I advise them to check that monthly and also tell them or supply, it doesn't cost much, supply them with batteries. Make sure they have those batteries available so they can make sure if there's an issue with their smoke detector or the detectors, they have batteries available to change them out. Another big thing is the candles. Please remember to advise a newcomer tenant that similar to ovens, candles should never be utilized as a heat source. And I've seen people use candles as a heat source, unfortunately. And like space heaters, candles should never be left unattended or positioned near flammable items. And another thing I'd recommend that you could do with your newcomer tenant is create an emergency kit. Um, this is a great thing to do. Make sure the kit includes non-perishable food, of course, food that respects their culture, water, first aid supplies, important documents, and any required medications. This kit will be essential for ensuring safety in case of a disaster or emergency. Now, if you need some assistance creating that kit, you can visit the American Red Cross website for an emergency preparedness checklist. So they have a great checklist you can use. And another thing I recommend, registering a household medical condition with utility providers. If there is a member in your client's household who relies on electrical power medical equipment, it's important to ensure they are registered with their utility provider. So typically, the provider will request a complete form. Sometimes they have their own forms or documentation from a physician. Now, with this, if there's a power outage and they have that on documentation of the medical condition, they're going to be your client's going to be given priority to get that electricity turned back on. Okay, so I highly recommend getting them registered, their medical condition registered with the utility provider. Next slide. And here is the American Red Cross preparedness checklist. So the one I talked about earlier. These links will be provided to you. They have a winter one and they also have a summer one as well, and disaster preparedness checklist as well. Now, depending on your American Red Cross, there are some affiliates that actually provide these kits for free. So again, it varies from each affiliate. I do know when I worked in Dallas, the Dallas affiliate worked with nonprofits to provide these kits for free for clients. Again, each affiliate is slightly different. The next slide. Now, we talked about some energy savings for winter due to time constraints. I do have it listed for the summer, so you can review this stuff, but we're not going to go over this. But here's some summer tips. We have that included. We're going to skip over that. So if you want to just go to the next slide, Grace. Again, here are some summer tips, energy tips for the summer. Someone had mentioned a fan earlier, which is under as an energy saving tip. The next slide. And again, this is summer. I do want to highlight, again, depending on where you live at, there are some programs that do provide LED lighting rebate programs. It is by state by state. The Bird Dog Lighting does have an actual link where you can look and check at your state to see if those grants are available to provide those type of lighting for clients. So the next slide. Now, I do want to talk about this. This is very important. It's called the LIHEAP program, which is the Low Income Home Energy Assistance Program. It is a critical federal and social service initiative that was first established in 1981. Now, this program relies on annual funding through congressional appropriations and falls under the jurisdiction of the U.S. Department of Health. And what this program does, it provides assistance to low income households, particularly those with the most limited incomes who face challenges in meeting their home energy expenses. Its primary objective is to assist those households in addressing their immediate home energy needs by providing financial aid. Now, the program's sustainability is ensured through grants and is allocated by the federal government, guaranteeing its ability to effectively cater to those in need. So a lot of resettlement staff don't know about the LIHEAP program, and this is a great program, but most of your clients would qualify for it to help them with their utility assistance. Now, LIHEAP, it is a short-term assistant program. The one we talked about earlier was a long-term program when it helps with weatherization. Now, when you look for LIHEAP programs, it does vary depending on where you live. And again, this link will be provided to you so you can look up your local LIHEAP program. Some LIHEAP programs you must apply through a community action agencies. Some require you to apply through a nonprofit organization or through a city entity. Um, Again, I want to talk about 211. 211 is, again, totally different from each area, but 211s are located in every area. And 211 is a referral and information system that can be used to find out where utility assistance is. I'm going to use me as an example. I live in Kansas City, Missouri. So in Kansas City, Missouri, you can call 211 and get a referral out to agencies that are providing utility assistance. Again, each 211 is slightly different, but usually 211s, that's what they do. They provide resources and referrals to agencies for that specific service. So usually your utility assistance, you can call the 211 to see, okay, what agencies I need to get my client signed up for to help with their electricity bill or their gas bill or their water bill, and they will refer you to the appropriate agency. So the next slide is going to talk about, it's a video, and it's going to talk about what LIHEAP is. Can't hear it, Grace. Can't hear it, Grace.
Summer can mean dangerously
Oh,
high
yes,
heat
ma'am.
for many people. It can also mean households have to make the difficult choice between paying for home cooling or paying for family essentials such as food or medical care. Approximately 27% of US households struggle with their home energy bills and are forced to make this decision. But there is help. For over 40 years, the Low Income Home Energy Assistance Program, or LIHEAP, has helped families and individuals with their home energy costs to maintain safe and healthy indoor temperatures. Depending on where you live, LIHEAP may be able to assist with a variety of services to help households stay cool in the summer. In addition to helping with cooling bills, LIHEAP can also be used to install or repair air conditioning units, purchase a generator, make minor energy related home repairs, reconnect electric services. LIHEAP does all this and more as part of its work to reduce the dangers of high heat and the negative effects that unsafe indoor air temperatures can have on families and individuals' health. Each year, LIHEAP provides approximately 900,000 households with cooling and summer crisis assistance, helping them to maintain safer, cooler, and healthier indoor temperatures. If you or someone you know is looking for help with energy bills, please visit energyhelp.us or call 1-866-674-6327.
Next slide. Thank you, Grace, for that. So that kind of gives an overview what LIHEAP is. And this is a snapshot of, again, this link will be provided for you so you can actually find out where your LIHEAP program is in your specific area. So this kind of shows you it's in every state. Next slide. Now, I'm going to just talk about generally how to apply for the assistance. Each agency is going to be more specific, but this is just general things that are required. First, you need to locate the weatherization agency or program that provides LIHEAP. Eligibility requirements is usually for low-income households or families. Again, we will provide you that HUD website so you can look up if you have a client you think that they would qualify for LIHEAP assistance. You can see how many people are in their actual family, in their income, and compare that to see if they would qualify. And usually they would qualify for LIHEAP. Now, generally, the application does require legal identification. You're just like, well, maybe my client does not have a traditional documentation. But if you get a statement, their I-94 would meet that identification. The account and billing information, which they should have, their income verification. If you get a letter from the resettlement agency breaking down how much that income or how much subsidies that they're receiving, that would meet that criteria, and have a copy of their current lease. So this is the things that they are going to require when you're doing an application to get them assistance. Next slide. Now, one thing I want to talk about, which a lot of resettlement staff does not know about, are disconnection laws. And you're like, what is a disconnection loss? Well, most states have laws, rules, and regulations in place that determine when electric, gas, water, or utility company may disconnect a customer service. Now, the rule and laws may prevent a shut-off of heat, power, or electric during winter or summer. Now, these laws do vary by state and were put into place to protect the elderly, families with children, and those with disabilities and medical conditions. Now, states will regulate if a utility company can turn off the heat in cold or winter months, or laws determine an energy company can turn off electricity or lights during the hot summer, among other scenarios. So the most important thing is you should know what your state's hot weather and cold weather rules are. This is when the National Weather Service predicts that during certain months, if temperatures rise above a certain degree, services cannot be disconnected or shut off. So if you have a client that you know have medical conditions, you should get them already registered with the utility company just in case. But also know if there is a hot weather advisory and say they fell behind on their utility bills, they have a disconnect notice. Based on the hot weather rule, those utilities cannot be disconnected or cold, so vice versa. And again, I will make sure this link is provided to you so you can look up your state to see what the hot weather rule and cold weather rules are. Next slide. We talked about utilities, but again, oh, let me go back. Again, I want to just continue to, no, I'm saying I'm going back. I'm sorry, Grace. Let's stick to that one. I want to go back to medical necessity for utilities. Now, we talked about if you do have a client that has a medical condition or someone in the household, it's so important. Again, I would like to say get them registered with their local utility company. Again, that will prevent a postponement of shut off when there is a medical need that arises. Say you have a client that falls behind on their utilities, they get a shut off notice. If you remind the utility company, hey, they have a medical necessity, they can get an extension to help them to pay for an extension on that shut off. So I just wanted to say that. Another thing is you might have a newcomer that has in their lease that the landlord is responsible for the utilities. If that's the reason, reason the utilities got shut off and it's outlined in the lease that they are responsible for it, then they're out of compliance with the lease. I want to make sure I point that out because there are some utilities are included in a lease. And say, for example, you have a newcomer that has that type of lease and their utilities get shut off. It is the landlord responsibility to get those utilities shut back on. Now, there are some reasons utilities can be disconnected. Um, if there's been some meter tampering, there's been some stealing of services, or if the utility company states that there's some unsafe conditions or they have fraudulently applied for services. So here is a brief video just explaining about utilities, what to do if utility company does cut off utilities for a client. I don't think this video does have a sound to it. It just, hopefully everybody can read that. Okay, so that kind of breaks it down. And that's interesting because some states do have pandemic related moratoriums where utilities cannot be shut off. Now, if you feel a client's utilities have been unlawfully shut off, you can contact a local fair housing agency, but also a legal aid, and we'll provide that link for you. Um, Next slide. So that concludes weatherization. And again, we'll make sure that you get this PowerPoint and also the links um, for assistance that I spoke about.
Thank you, Lynette and Grace. I think we can pause the recording when we do the Q&A section in case people want. So thanks again to our presenter, Lynette Perlman at Refugee Housing Solutions, and thank you all for attending today's RWC Lunch and Learn. We'd love to hear from you, any feedback that you have on today's webinar, and also suggestions for future Lunch and Learn topics. We ask that you take a moment to complete the survey. You can scan the QR code on your screen. You might also be able to click on the link in the chat shortly. And that will provide you an opportunity to provide feedback and also suggestions for the future. As I mentioned earlier, you will receive a follow-up email with a link to the recording of today's webinar, as well as the slides and any additional materials that Lynette referred to throughout the course of the presentation. And once again, on behalf of Refugee Welcome Collective, thank you for joining us today, and I hope you have a great rest of your week.